I discovered my husband was planning to leave me broke while funding his affair. So I followed the money, exposed his mistress at her family, started a federal investigation, and watched their entire scheme collapse. I want to tell you about the moment I stopped being a wife. It wasn't when I found the lingerie. It wasn't when I confirmed whose it was, or when I read the emails, or when I sat in my car in the driveway of the house Daniel had put in his mother's name, and understood with the cold precision of someone who does this professionally exactly how comprehensively I had been arranged. It was 3 weeks later in the marble foyer of the Moretti mansion in front of 112 people holding champagne flutes, when Elena Moretti looked at me with her glossy mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile and said, "Oh, and you are?" Like she didn't know, like she'd never heard my name from my husband's mouth, like she hadn't been CC'd on emails discussing my settlement, like she hadn't spent 6 months helping Daniel structure a divorce that would leave me in the words I had read on his screen at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, too broke to fight. The room had gone quiet in that particular way, that rooms go quiet when something is happening that everyone can feel and no one will acknowledge yet. I looked at Elena Moretti. Pale gold dress, dark hair, her father's money, and my husband's hands on her waist, and I smiled. That was when Daniel got nervous. He had never seen me smile like that. He had spent 7 years making sure he wouldn't. My name is Claire Voss Ashby. I am 34 years old. Before I was Daniel's wife, I was a forensic accountant with 11 years of experience and a client list that included 3 law firms, a federal contractor, and a regional bank that had hired me specifically because I could find things in financial records that other people had gone to considerable trouble to hide. I was good at it, not good in the way that people who are merely competent are good. I mean the specific good of someone who finds the work genuinely absorbing, who reads a balance sheet the way other people read a novel, looking for the places where the story doesn't quite hold together. Daniel called it boring little calculator work when he wanted to diminish me at dinner parties, which he did with the casual frequency of a man who has learned that a woman's professional identity is the easiest thing to erode in a social setting. He said it with a laugh. The room always laughed with him. I smiled and let them because I had long since stopped needing a dinner party to tell me what I was worth. I met Daniel at a charity gala 7 years ago, which is in retrospect a setting that should have told me something about the kind of theater he lived inside. He was charming in the specific way that certain men are charming when they decide you are worth charming. Focused, warm, attentive in a way that felt like being chosen. He was 38, ran a mid-sized property development company that operated at the edge of several city contracts, and had a quality of absolute confidence that I found at 31 more compelling than I should have. We were married in 14 months. I left my practice. He said there was no need for me to work, that his firm needed a sharp eye on the finances, that I could do more good internally than externally. I believed him, which is something I have spent considerable time examining since, and have arrived at a place of understanding that does not require me to hate myself for it. He was very good at the performance. Some people are. I spent 7 years doing work that was never credited, reviewing contracts, when his CFO made errors cleaning projections, when his board started asking uncomfortable questions, finding once a discrepancy in a subcontractor invoice that would have cost the firm $340,000 if it had gone unnoticed, which Daniel mentioned to no one, fixed quietly, and did not thank me for. I signed charity checks and attended events and was introduced as Daniel's wife occasionally, as Claire, who has a background in finance, which was like describing a surgeon as someone with an interest in anatomy. I told myself this was temporary, that the arrangement had value, that I was contributing. 7 years. Then I found the lingerie. It was a Saturday morning in October. I was looking for the parking pass. We had an event that afternoon, a hospital benefit, another room full of people who would call me Daniel's wife and move on. And I checked the glove box of his car first because that was where he kept it. It wasn't in the glove box. I checked under the passenger seat. The parking pass was there, tucked against the seat rail. So was a folded square of red lace. I picked it up, unfolded it, held it for a moment in the gray October light coming through the car window. The perfume was distinctive, floral, expensive, the kind of fragrance that announces itself and doesn't apologize. I had smelled it before on Daniel's collar twice, which I had filed both times under things I was telling myself were nothing. At a function 6 weeks ago, when a woman in a pale dress had kissed his cheek in greeting, and I had noticed the perfume and the slightly too long quality of the greeting and filed that too in the same drawer. I stood in the driveway holding red lace for a long time. Then I put it back exactly where I found it, folded under the seat precisely as it had been. I found the parking pass in the center console where it should have been, went inside and got dressed for the benefit. I said nothing, but I opened a new folder on my personal laptop that evening. Not the shared household computer, my personal one, the old MacBook Pro I kept in the bottom of my closet under a box of tax files, and I labeled it simply documentation. I had built a lot of documentation folders in my professional life. I had never built one about my own marriage. The skills transferred. The first thing I confirmed was who she was. The perfume was a French brand. I had registered it specifically enough to search it. Maso Margiela's replica in Flower Market, which retails at $185 for the large bottle, and is distinctive enough that I found it in approximately 4 minutes of searching, alongside the memory of the pale dress and the greeting that lasted too long. The woman from the benefit Elena Moretti, 29, daughter of Carlo Moretti, who had built a construction and development empire on city contracts over 3 decades, and who appeared in the society pages with the regular confidence of a man who knows exactly which foundations to donate to and which inspectors to know by first name. Elena had a social media presence that was curated and expensive and told me a great deal. She appeared in photos going back 7 months at several of the same events Daniel had attended. In 3 of them, they appeared in the same frame, which on its own proved nothing. But they appeared in the same frame with the specific quality of people who are managing their proximity. Not quite together, not quite separate. The carefully calibrated distance of a secret. I noted the dates saved, the photos, added them to the folder. Then I started looking at Daniel's finances. This is where I need to tell you something that Daniel had forgotten or never quite understood about the arrangement he had made. He had given me access to his firm's accounts. Not full executive access, but working access enough to do the review work he periodically needed me to do. He had given me this access casually, as one gives a tool access to the work it's meant for. He had never thought carefully about what a forensic accountant does with access to financial records when she decides to actually look. He had made his company accounts difficult enough to navigate that a casual observer would stop. He had not made them difficult enough for me. I found the first anomaly on the 4th day. A vendor payment, $47,000, categorized under consultancy services to a company called MV Consulting, LLC, billed in March. I searched MV Consulting, LLC in the State Business Registry. Registered agent Elena Moretti. $47,000 paid by my husband's firm to his girlfriend's shell company, categorized as a business expense. I did not move. I sat at my kitchen table at 9:23 p.m. with the screen in front of me, and I breathed very carefully, and I did not move. Then I went looking for the others. There were 6 more. Different company names, different categories, different billing dates, all pointing through registration documents, through shared addresses, through a registered agent who appeared in 2 of them. Back to variations of the same structure. $280,000 in total over 14 months moved through vendor payments to companies that existed on paper and, as far as I could determine, nowhere else. Shell vendors, false invoices, business funds routing to his girlfriend, while his firm's official financials, which I had helped maintain, reflected an entirely different picture. I made a copy of everything encrypted. It sent it to a cloud account he didn't know existed. Then I kept going. The emails came next, and I want to be precise about how I found them because Daniel has since claimed I violated his privacy, which is an interesting argument from a man whose divorce filing describes company assets that are $12 million lighter than his official records suggest. I did not hack his accounts. I didn't need to. Daniel had connected his personal email to the shared household tablet 18 months ago and had never disconnected it. He used the tablet primarily for streaming. He had not thought carefully about what happens when you sync an email account to a shared device that your forensic accountant wife can access at any time. I read 3 weeks of email on a Tuesday afternoon while he was at a site visit. The correspondence between Daniel and Elena was thorough. They had apparently never considered that the messages were accessible because people in affairs rely on the assumption that the wronged party is not looking. And for 7 years, I had given Daniel every reason to believe I wasn't. The messages were what I expected: romantic, operational, occasionally cruel, in the specific way that people are cruel when they discuss the person they're deceiving in front of each other. I appeared in them as Claire, sometimes as the situation, and in 3 of them in terms that I read once and understood, and then filed away in the part of my mind that I use for information I don't need to feel in the moment. What I had not expected was the financial detail. They had been planning the divorce, not just planning structuring. Elena had introduced Daniel to a financial consultant, a man named Reyes, referenced by last name only, who had apparently helped design a framework for moving assets offshore prior to filing in a way that would make the marital estate appear significantly smaller than it was. The emails referenced specific accounts, specific timelines, specific amounts. $12 million, that was the number they used, moved through Carlo Moretti's network of construction subsidiaries, shell vendors, false contracts, the same mechanism Daniel had been using on a smaller scale to pay Elena into accounts that would not appear on any divorce filing. And there was a specific email from 6 weeks prior sent at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I know, because the timestamp was the first thing I read, in which Daniel wrote in reference to me, "Hide the money before Claire gets suspicious. Once she signs, she'll be too broke to fight." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I opened a new document and started writing everything down. I called Margaret Chen on a Wednesday morning. Margaret is a family law attorney with 26 years of practice and a reputation in this city for being the person you call when the other side has more money and is planning to use it. She is 61 years old, small, relentlessly prepared, and has the specific quality of someone who has been underestimated her entire career and has found it professionally useful. I told her everything, walked her through the folder, showed her the vendor payments, the shell company registrations, the emails, the offshore transfer documentation. She was quiet for a long time when I finished. "How long did this take you to build?" She said 3 weeks. Another pause. "Claire, this is not a divorce case." "I know," I said. "This is potentially federal." "I know that too," I said. "Who do I call?" She introduced me to Special Agent Diana Reyes, no relation to the financial consultant. A coincidence, I noted. With 14 years in the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, Agent Reyes was 39 precise and had the specific patience of someone who has spent a career watching people hand her exactly what she needs if she waits long enough. We met in Margaret's conference room on a Thursday. I brought everything, physical copies, encrypted drive, the cloud account access. Agent Reyes went through it methodically, made notes, asked clarifying questions that confirmed she understood exactly what she was looking at. "The shell vendor structure is consistent with patterns we've seen in public contract fraud." She said, "The Moretti connection is relevant. We have a pre-existing inquiry." Pre-existing inquiry, which meant Carlo Moretti had already been on someone's radar, which meant Daniel had walked into a situation that was considerably more exposed than he understood. "What's your timeline?" Agent Reyes asked me. "They're serving divorce papers in approximately 3 weeks, I said. "After the Moretti charity event. I believe they're waiting until after the event to avoid disruption to Carlos's public profile." Agent Reyes looked at Margaret. "We need 2 weeks," she said. "You have 2, I said. I also made a separate call on a Friday afternoon to a man named Thomas Weller, a forensic accounting specialist I had worked with at my previous firm, now operating as an independent expert witness with 18 years of experience and a relationship with 3 different federal districts. I asked him to review my documentation and produce an independent expert assessment. He called me back 48 hours later. "This is comprehensive," he said. "Where did you get your training?" "The same place I got yours," I said. He produced a 14-page report. I added it to the folder. Then I thought about the charity event, the Moretti Foundation Autumn Gala, one of the larger events on the city's social calendar. 112 invited guests. I obtained the guest list through a contact who worked in event coordination. City councilmen, bank executives, local developers, the specific cross-section of the city that Carlo Moretti needed to be seen by. I thought about what Daniel had said in that email. "She'll be too broke to fight." I thought about 7 years. I made one more decision. The scheduled email went out at exactly 7:00 p.m. on the night of the gala. Time to arrive. As the cocktail hour peaked, I had prepared it carefully. A 4-page summary of the documentation written in plain language with 3 attachments, vendor payment records, relevant email excerpts, specifically the ones involving Daniel's voice, his words, his specific instructions, and a link to Thomas Weller's independent assessment posted on a secure server. The recipients, every person on the Moretti Foundation Gala guest list whose email address I could find 87 out of 112. I had spent 2 evenings tracking them through professional directories, foundation donor lists, and LinkedIn. The subject line was a note on the Ashby Moretti Financial Partnership. "Some records you may find relevant." I sent it from an account that had my name on it. I did not hide. Then I got dressed. I had thought carefully about what to wear. Not Ashford red, not Moretti gold. I wore midnight blue structured, my grandmother's pearl earrings. No jewelry, nothing he had given me, nothing that had come from the life I was dismantling. I thought like exactly what I was, a woman who has decided and is not going back. I put the red lingerie in a silver gift box, the kind that department stores use with white tissue paper folded neatly around it. I had a driver take me to the Moretti mansion. I arrived at 7:23 p.m. The foyer was everything I expected. Crystal chandeliers, the particular light of money that has calcified into taste, champagne towers, and catered food, and the ambient sound of wealthy people laughing in the register they use when they want to signal they have nothing to worry about. Elena was near the marble fireplace in her pale gold dress. My husband's hand was on her waist like she had already won, like the papers were already signed, and I was already gone. And this was simply the opening chapter of what came next. Daniel saw me first. I watched his smile die not gradually, but all at once like a light switched off. He stepped forward away from Elena, the specific movement of a man trying to insert himself between two things. Claire, his voice had the particular tension of someone managing an emergency. What are you doing here? I looked at his hand on her hip, which he had not moved, which Elena had not moved because neither of them had processed it yet. And then at Elena, who had turned and was looking at me with the glossy amusement of a woman who has been told extensively that I was not a threat. I came to return something, I said. The room had the quality of a room in which the ambient sound has dropped without anyone specifically stopping it. That collective animal awareness that something is happening. Elena tilted her head, performing confusion beautifully. She was good at performance. She'd had practice. Oh, and you are. A few people laughed politely, the laugh of people who have read the social cue and chosen to follow it. Daniel's jaw locked. I placed the silver box in Elena's hands. She opened it. I had not taped it. I wanted it to open easily, wanted the moment to be clean. The white tissue separated and the red lace spilled out of the box like something released, catching the chandelier light settling over her hands. The sound that went through the room was not quite a gas. It was more like the sound of a collective inhale. 100+ people breathing in at the same time and not breathing out. Someone dropped a glass. The sound was enormous in the silence. Elena's mother, who had been standing 12 feet away, covered her mouth. Carlo Moretti went the color of old brick. And Elena recovered fast because she always did. Because a woman who has been managing a secret for 8 months gets very good at recovery. Pulled her composure back around herself and looked at me with the expression of someone who has decided that offense is the only move left. How vulgar, she said. You came to my family home to humiliate yourself. Daniel grabbed my wrist. Hard. Leave. He said, now. I looked down at his fingers on my wrist. Then I looked up at him. Careful, I said quietly. There are cameras everywhere. His grip loosened. Not because he's a reasonable man. Daniel is not a reasonable man, but because he is a calculating one. And the calculation had shifted. Elena laughed soft and practiced. Poor Claire. You think this changes anything Daniel has done with you? He told me you're useless without him. 7 years in one sentence. Every argument where I had said too much, and he had said that. Every locked door, every cold silence that followed any assertion that I had value independent of his context. Every dinner party where he had described my career as boring little calculator work and watched the room agree with him. I smiled, and that was when Daniel got genuinely nervous. He pulled me into the hallway. Elena followed on her heels because Elena had decided incorrectly, as it turned out, that the hallway was where she had the advantage. Are you out of your mind? Daniel hissed. He was close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn for 7 years, and I felt nothing. Less than nothing. The specific emotional flatline that occurs when something has been processed all the way through. Do you have any idea who her father is? Yes, I said. A contractor who built a significant portion of the city's public infrastructure using government funds with building inspection reports that don't match independent structural assessments on at least 4 projects. I have the documentation if you'd like to review it. The color left Daniel's face in a way that was different from embarrassment. Embarrassment is a surface phenomenon. What moved through Daniel's face went deeper than surface. Elena had come to stand behind his shoulder. She looked at me with something that was trying to be contempt and landing closer to uncertainty. You pathetic little housewife, she said. You think gossip hurts us? No, I said. Paperwork does. She blinked. It was the first genuinely unguarded expression I had seen from her. The blink of a person encountering something they hadn't prepared for. Daniel laughed, forced tight. The laugh of a man who is deciding whether he can still control the room. Claire doesn't understand my company accounts. She never did. That was his greatest mistake. The one I had been waiting for him to make, confusing my silence with ignorance, confusing 7 years of watching and not speaking with not having seen. I reviewed your company accounts every quarter for 4 years, I said. I found the MV consulting payments in October. I found the other 6 vendors by the following weekend. I had Thomas Weller, 18 years as a forensic accounting expert certified by 3 federal districts, produce an independent assessment by November 3rd. I opened my clutch. I have his 14-page report. Would you like a copy? I brought several. Elena's arms unfolded from across her chest and fell to her sides. Daniel went absolutely still. The divorce papers. I continued the ones your financial consultant, Reyes, helped structure, the ones designed to hide $12 million through your father's subsidiary network before the filing. Those papers have been reviewed by Margaret Chen Family Law, 26 years. And the documentation behind them has been with Agent Diana Reyes, FBI Financial Crimes, for the past 11 days, Elena whispered, barely audible. You told her? Daniel's head snapped toward her. No, I said your emails did. Carlo Moretti appeared in the hallway with 2 security guards. The way powerful men appear when they've decided a situation has exceeded the management capacity of their children. Get this woman out of my house, he said. I reached into my clutch and removed the drive. Small black USB-A. Before you do, I said, and my voice was entirely steady, which was either the result of 11 days of preparation or the specific calm that arrives when you have gone past fear into something that functions like clarity. Every guest in that ballroom received a scheduled email from me at 7 o'clock this evening. Daniel lunged. He had 3 in and 60 pounds on me, and he moved fast. But I had anticipated it because Daniel's first response to losing control has always been physical. A grab, a grip, a hand on an arm to redirect. And I had positioned myself with the hallway camera at my back. His hand stopped an inch from my face. The camera above us blinked red, still recording. His hand dropped. I looked at Carlo. Invoices, I said. Fake inspections, bribery ledgers connecting your company to 3 city officials. Bank transfers through 5 subsidiary accounts over 14 months. An email correspondence between your daughter and my husband, planning to leave me with nothing before the divorce filing. I held up the drive. All of this is already with federal investigators. The drive is a courtesy copy. Elena's lips had lost their steadiness. You're lying. You don't have Exhibit A through Exhibit F, categorized by account and date with independent forensic certification. I said it the way I used to say it in depositions. Clean, factual, the voice of someone who has done the work and is comfortable with what the work shows. Then you'll enjoy discussing that with the prosecutor. And at that exact moment, the ballroom erupted, not all at once, in the specific cascading way of rooms full of people who have all just received the same notification. Phones lighting up one by one, then several, then the sound rising from murmur to something louder, more fractured. The sound of a story breaking open in real time. I could hear it from the hallway. A city councilman appeared in the ballroom doorway and headed for the exit without making eye contact with anyone. A bank executive I recognized spoke quietly into his lapel, a gesture so habitual it was probably unconscious. And then through the doorway, visible from where I stood, I saw him, Elena's fiancé. I had not planned for the fiancé specifically, but I had known he would be there. He appeared on the guest list, Marcoy, 32 commercial real estate. They had been engaged for months. He was standing near the Champagne Tower, looking at his phone with an expression that was traveling in real time, from confusion to comprehension to something raw and undefended. He looked up. He looked at Elena in the doorway of her family's hallway with red lace on the floor where it had fallen from the box, and my husband standing beside her. You were sleeping with him, he said. His voice was completely level. The level of someone who is not yet in the feeling and will not be for some time. Elena's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Daniel spun toward me. The performance was gone now. The warmth, the confidence, the curated ease of a man who has spent his entire life being the most certain person in a room. What was left was something smaller and more desperate. Claire, stop this. We can talk. We can fix this. You had 7 years to talk, I said. The main doors opened. 2 federal agents walked in, business attire, credentials visible. Agent Reyes. I recognized her colleague. I did not. 2 uniformed officers followed. The ballroom went to absolute silence. Daniel stumbled backward. 1 step caught himself on the hallway wall. I filed everything this morning. I said the warrant was issued at 4 this afternoon. Tonight was courtesy. I looked at the room, at the guests, frozen around champagne flutes and catered food. At the chandelier light falling on 100 people who were witnessing the specific moment when a very expensive performance ended. I thought the people you stole from deserved to watch your face when the truth arrived. Carlos screamed for his lawyer. The sound echoed off marble. Agent Reyes raised the warrant. Elena made a sound when they took her phone. Not quite a scream, something shorter and higher. The sound of someone realizing that the thing they believed was theirs is being taken from their hands. Daniel told them I'd forged the documentation. He said it with the confidence of a man who has always been believed, who has spent his life in rooms where his word was sufficient. He said it twice. Then someone's phone on the ballroom floor, face up, volume apparently all the way, began playing audio. Daniel's voice, his actual voice from an email he'd apparently dictated using voice to text, and then transcribed, which I had found in the cache data of the household tablet. Hide the money before Claire gets suspicious. Once she signs, she'll be too broke to fight. His own voice filling the silent ballroom, bouncing off the crystal chandeliers, reaching every single person who was still standing there. His investors, two of them men I had seen at his firm's quarterly dinners, walked away from the group they'd been standing in without speaking to Daniel, without looking at him. The specific departure of people who have calculated their exposure and made a decision. His mother, who had been near the back of the room and whom I had not seen until that moment, began to cry. Marco Vanni set his champagne glass on the tray of a passing server with tremendous calm, reached into his jacket pocket, placed his engagement ring on the champagne table, and walked out of the Moretti mansion without saying another word to anyone. Daniel looked at me, hatred first, clean and absolute. The hatred of a man who has been outplayed by someone he decided wasn't capable of it. Then something smaller fear. The specific fear of a man who has just understood that the walls he built to contain other people can also contain him. "You ruined everything," he whispered. I looked down. The red lingerie was still on the hallway floor where it had fallen from Elena's hands. I picked it up, walked to where Daniel was standing, and dropped it at his feet. "No," I said. "I just returned what was always yours." He looked down at it, and for the first time in 7 years, my husband had absolutely nothing to say. What followed was not dramatic. The law never is up close. It is paperwork and scheduling and the specific grinding patience of institutional process, which I found, given my professional background, easier to endure than most. Agent Diana Reyes and her team spent 11 weeks building the federal case. The charges against Daniel included wire fraud, asset concealment in anticipation of divorce proceedings, and conspiracy. The conspiracy charge connecting him to Carlo Moretti's network, which had been under preliminary inquiry for 8 months before I handed them the connective tissue they'd been looking for. Carlo Moretti was indicted on 4 counts related to public contract fraud and bribery of municipal inspectors. The construction irregularities on those 4 projects are currently under independent structural review. 2 of the buildings have been flagged for inspection. Daniel's firm entered receivership in January. The assets, including the $12 million that had been moved through Moretti subsidiaries, which the federal recovery team located within 6 weeks, were frozen pending the outcome of the criminal proceedings. His board removed him before he was formally charged. These things move fast when the story becomes undeniable. Elena was charged with 1 count of conspiracy and 1 count of money laundering, specifically her role in the shell company structure, which her own company registration had documented comprehensively. Her attorney is negotiating. I understand the negotiation is not going well. The divorce was finalized in February. Margaret Chen is the reason the settlement reflects something close to the actual marital estate rather than the version Daniel had designed. The forfeited clauses, combined with the asset recovery, resulted in an outcome that would have been unimaginable to the version of me who found red lace under a car seat in October. I am not going to give you the number. It's not the point.